What is up? What is going on, everybody? I am back with another video. This time we are going to be talking Seattle Seahawks football. I'm going to do a full depth chart breakdown of the Seahawks. This is going to be like my big, essentially, Seahawks preview video. The Mariners are off today, so no better time to do it than Thursday. There's a Seahawks game that I do want to talk about, preseason, of course. So I'm just going to go through the depth chart here, break down position by position. I'm going to give each position my grade. Am I grading on a curve? Am I grading just by grades? I have no idea. I'm just giving grades. Probably more just where I think they are positionally in terms of value. I don't know about a curve because I don't know other teams as well as the Seahawks. So I can't say they're a C here based on relative to the rest of the NFL. I'm just giving my grade and where I think they stand. In terms of the position itself. So I've got the depth chart out. We're going to go over, we'll talk about some of the injuries, some of the positional battles that may be happening this year throughout the depth chart. I just have ESPN's depth chart up here. I know the Seahawks depth chart pretty well, but it's just nice to have a visual here just in case. And there'll be I'll put my grades up on the screen as I go through them. So we'll start with the offense, go through the defense. This isn't like a prediction video. It's just how I think they line up. So let's get into it. Let's start with quarterback. Geno Smith obviously starting, Drew Lock the backup, and then you have Holton Ahlers as the third string. I don't know. It's going to be Geno Smith and Drew Lock on the roster on opening day. Much different this year. We know Geno Smith is a starter. Last year there was some competition at the position. I put the Seahawks about a B at quarterback. I feel pretty solid about the position. Feel good with Geno Smith going in. The question this year, obviously, with Geno Smith is going to be pretty simple. Are we getting first half last year Geno Smith? Because the first half of last season, Geno Smith, legitimate MVP candidate, legitimate franchise quarterback. Second half of last year, I think a good player, capable, an NFL starter, but certainly not an MVP candidate. Now, I think no matter what, Geno Smith is a starting quarterback in this league. It wasn't just little dink and dunks last year that led him to be productive. He was able to push the ball down the field. He put the ball in tight windows. His pocket presence was actually better than I thought it was going to be. He still takes some sacks, but overall, I was impressed with his pocket awareness. I thought he was going to have some really bad strip sack fumbles. He did have some. It's definitely probably a weakness of Geno, but it was better than I thought. He's a good runner. Legitimately, he was used in a lot of running plays, just straight up Geno running. And I'm wearing a Geno Smith jersey, so obviously I'm a Geno Smith fan. But there are some concerns. I believe he led the league in turnover-worthy plays in the second half of the year, and he had more turnovers. Doesn't mean his whole second half was a disaster. Played really well in that Rams game in LA, played really well against the Jets. I actually thought he played pretty good in the playoff game against the 49ers as well. I thought he played solid in the second half. He wasn't bad, but it just wasn't franchise-level quarterback play. Hopefully, I think the goal has got to be something in between there. You're looking for something that you don't need Geno to be an MVP, but you'd like to see a little bit of improvement from some of those games in the second half. The Raiders game was another game he played fantastic. I know some of those defenses aren't great, but that's how quarterbacks make their bread. You beat up on bad defenses and you break even with the good ones. So I'm not worried at all about the quarterback. I shouldn't say I'm not worried. I'm going to be curious what Geno we get this year. And it's the reason the team gave him a team-friendly contract with an opt-out after the first season, because there is some question marks. But there's no question mark who the starter is going to this year. It's going to be Geno. Curious what they do in the preseason. 2 years ago, when we knew it was Russ did not play in the preseason. Last year, obviously, both Geno and Drew Lock played in the preseason. You had to because there was a competition. Then Drew Lock got COVID. I don't think that would have changed. I think it was going to be Geno's job from the start. But they both played. I think Geno might take a few snaps in the preseason, but nothing too crazy. I'm going to be brutally honest. I do not like Drew Lock at all. I think Drew Lock stinks. I know some people and I think people look at it and go, oh man, look what they did with Geno. Drew Lock can do that too. And I think the Seahawks deserve a ton of credit for what they got out of Geno last year. I think the Pete's culture. I think Waldron finally had a quarterback that was willing to run his system, not just a quarterback that wanted to run the plays that he knows at Russell Wilson. Geno stayed within that offense. I think it was great for him. But there is some talent there too. You've got to be good. And let's not forget, Geno was a pretty highly touted quarterback coming out of West Virginia. He went to kind of a dumpster fire in New York at the end of that Rex Ryan era and got tossed in right away as a starter, didn't really get a chance to develop. and then just kind of got cast aside as a backup and never has gotten a chance to really play again. So kudos to the Seahawks for giving him that chance. But I think a lot of that credit's got to go to Geno as well. I think a good quarterback was inside there. I'm fine with Drew Lock, like as a backup quarterback. He's fine. Like if you have to start one game or something, I think you can survive it as long as it's not against like the Niners or something like that. If you're playing the Cardinals and Drew Lock's got to make a start, I think he can be okay. And there is some upside there. I understand Lock is a former second-round pick, hasn't really been in a great system himself either. There is a lot of arm talent there, definitely. So I'm not trying to, I guess, just write off Drew Lock, but I'd be absolutely blown away if Drew Lock really amounts to anything. So I give the quarterback position a B for Seattle overall. Running backs, obviously some injury questions there. Kenneth Walker, I believe, is still out. Charbonnet did get back on the field there. Then you've got DJ Dallas and Kenny McIntosh. I think Pete said he was close to returning as well. Really interesting group. I give it a B plus for the running back group overall. I think it's got great depth and it's got great talent. I think Kenneth Walker is amazing. I love Kenneth Walker. I think he's one of the most, what words am I trying to use here? Like his ability to cut last year, like to go from here to here and shiftiness, I think was among the best in the league in terms of running backs. He is able to sidestep, get around, hit that corner as good as anybody. So I guess I would say, I'm not like an expert, but I'd say I guess footwork was amazing from Kenneth Walker. I do think there were some times he left some yards out in the field. He finished the year great, and I think Pete kind of instilled that in him. Wasn't it the halftime of the Chiefs game that Pete went up to him and goes, dude, just run, just go? Like there were some games like that Raiders game where he had like 14 carries for 14 yards against a bad run defense. I think sometimes Walker's looking for the big run and not taking the 3-4 yards or the 2 yards, whatever you need. I think that was a little bit of a problem. I think he got better at it towards the end of the year. Last few weeks of the season, they also played some poor run defenses. So who knows? I love Kenneth Walker, but that's where I think Zach Charbonnet is going to be a huge part of this offense. I think he's going to be better, a little bit of that thunder and lightning. Charbonnet is going to give you a little bit more of that thunder to come in. Now he's a gifted runner as well, but I think he's going to be more willing to get those 2, 3, 4 yards when you need 2, 3, 4 yards. And that could just be part of learning from Kenneth Walker. You come into the league and you're looking to be explosive. That was the only qualm I had with Walker last year. He was also thrust into the starting role really quickly, had some injury issues as well a little bit, so that could have been some of it. I love the Charbonnet pick. I know some people criticized it, but if you go back and watch my draft recap video, the criticisms were just, oh, we don't like running backs early, but we love the pick. If you like the pick, it's a good pick. I think Charbonnet is going to be a great addition. Glad he's back in the field. I was worried about that shoulder injury just because they were talking about second opinions and stuff. So really excited to see him. I think that's going to be a really exciting 1-2 punch with Walker and Charbonnet, and both on rookie deals, which is awesome. Kenny McIntosh, I think, is going to be a really nice Travis Homer replacement, assuming he gets back out there. Great receiving back at Georgia. And DJ Dallas is still there. I like DJ Dallas. I don't think he's a starter in this league, but you know what? It gives you really, really good depth. You know, if Walker and Charbonnet were both out, and there was a chance they were, and Walker is still questionable, and Charbonnet just got back, I have faith in DJ Dallas. Enough that, again, do I want Walker and Charbonnet in there? Yes, but I think Seattle can win football games with DJ Dallas at running back. I think DJ Dallas, to me, is kind of like just okay at everything, but by being okay at everything, like receiving, running, blocking, all the little things, it makes you a good player overall. Like, I don't think he's really terrible at anything. I don't think he's really great at anything either, but I think he's real nice depth. I like DJ Dallas. Wide receiver, let's move on to the wide receiver group. Probably the best aspect of this Seattle Seahawks team. I give them an A. I think it's one of the best wide receiver groups in the league. And they finally now have that, in my opinion, legitimate third weapon with Jackson Smith and Jigba, the rookie drafted in the first round of Ohio State. We know what DK Metcalf can do. We know what Tyler Lockett can do. I will say I absolutely, one of my favorite things about DK and Tyler is the yin and yang of those two players. DK is the big body guy, can beat you one-on-one downfield. He can just out-muscle you. Like, DK is just such a gifted athlete. They're all gifted athletes. Tyler Lockett's a very gifted athlete, but you guys know what I mean. And Lockett can beat you one-on-one too, but Lockett to me is more the zone beater, nobody is better at finding those holes in the zone, the intermediate routes between the safeties, past the corners, sitting down at that first down marker, making the catch. Great hands. I mean, Lockett's hands are exceptional. Very smart too. I know he got some criticism. He was always diving down, not taking a hit. There were some moments where he cost the team first downs doing it, but over the course of a season, I think it's smart to avoid taking the hits there. And now you've got a legitimate third weapon. And Marquise Goodwin did a nice job for them last year. He really did. I thought he was as good of a weapon they've had there at that third position in some time. But now you've got a guy that I think is a legitimate, just top end talent in Smith-Njigba. Now, I don't see Smith-Njigba being like a guy that's just going to go straight down the sidelines and catch 60-yard bombs. But what I do think Smith-Njigba is going to do is, one, I think he's really going to open up the middle of the field. I think he's going to be able to sit it, kind of like I said about Lockett a little bit. I don't think he's as shifty as Tyler Lockett is, or maybe as crisp of a route runner as Lockett. Oh, Smith-Njigba's a pretty good route runner. But what I think he's going to be able to do is just find those holes 7-8 yards, and he's going to be that perfect. If DK's locked up, Tyler's taken away, Smith-Njigba is going to be right there for Geno Smith to find him for 7, 8, 9 yards. He's going to move the chains. He's the guy that's going to he's going to be a great DVOA receiver. He's going to have great value. His catches are going to be first downs. He's going to be a first down machine, in my opinion. I don't view him as being necessarily DK. You're talking about DK, you're talking about just a legitimate freak weapon that DK is. You can just throw the ball up there and hope he gets it. The irony of that is DK actually struggles with some of those contested balls, but you guys know what I mean there. I don't see that being Smith-Njigba, but I really think he perfect fit for this offense. If you had to ask me before the draft, what's the perfect spot for Jackson Smith-Njigba, this is it. And it's the exact type of player that this team has been missing for years with DK and Tyler. It's what put this receiver group kind of at a BB plus versus the A that, in my opinion, they are now. So really excited for that. In terms of depth, I talked about the D. Eskridge situation. I'm not going to get into that. Obviously, I have zero tolerance for domestic violence. I also don't know what exactly happened. So we'll just talk about this from a football aspect. Listen, I have zero hope. I had pretty much zero hope for D. Eskridge. He's had 2 years, hasn't done anything. Anything you were going to get was going to be gravy. I know he's looked great in camp. And in fact, I think he had a couple touchdowns in the mock game. But at this point, until he shows on the field, he's going to miss the first 6 games anyways. I just can't believe in him. I do think there's a good player in there. We've seen him be effective on some jet sweeps. I actually think that would be a great weapon to have with DK, Tyler, and Smith-Njigba to be able to run Eskridge on those jet sweeps. I think he could be a good punt kick returner. So I do think there is a legit weapon in there with D. Eskridge, but he hasn't shown it yet, and now the suspension stuff. So, and who knows, by the time he gets back, that position may be done. I like Cade Johnson. I actually thought he played pretty well in limited play last year as kind of that slot guy a little bit. Made some catches down the stretch. Again, as your 5th receiver, I think he's fine. Drake Young, kind of the DK backup, you would say. Drake Young, kind of that same big body guy, was a great special teamer last year more than anything. They did get him the football a little bit at the end of the year. He ran some end arounds, which was kind of funny because to me, Drake Young's almost built more like a tight end than he is a receiver. But good speed, good size. I mean, again, as your 5th, 6th receiver, absolutely fine. So I give them an A at receiver. This offense has potential to be really good, guys. It really does. I mean, if you can somehow get first half Geno on this team, this could be easily a top 5 offense. It could. It absolutely could. We'll keep going here. Let's go to tight ends. I'm going to give them a B+. I know it was, I think Hugh Millen was on with Softy, and Hugh Millen said they were poor at tight end. They may not have the top shelf talent, but the depth here is really, really good. And I think the talent is too. Noah Fant and Will Dissly and Colby Parkinson. Noah Fant had a nice season last year. He's not a blocker, certainly. He's more of a receiving tight end, and he's not an athletic freak. I mean, again, I said these guys are all athletic freaks, but good hands. Just solid, good pass catcher. I mean, and as your one DK Tyler Smith as your 5th, 6th weapon on this offense, absolutely a great weapon to have. And then, while Noah Fant's not a great blocker, you have Will Dissly, who might be the best blocking tight end in the NFL. Will Dissly's not the most gifted athlete, but he catches. He's going to catch the ball when it's thrown his way. A great number two. And Colby Parkinson, I mean, my God, another guy that I think is a great weapon, a super great, super impressive possible red zone target, in my opinion. I think they used him a little bit there last year. I loved what the Hawks did last year. Did a lot of those plays where the quarterback rolls out and the tight end kind of funnels in underneath, and the tight ends were really effective on those, all three of them. Again, is it like the top tier talent in this tight end group? No, but they're all three are effective weapons. All three, I think, are good, and they all do something different to the table. I think Fant's just kind of your solid pass catcher. Dissly's your blocker, but also can catch the football. Very well rounded, not super athletic, obviously. And then Colby Parkinson is kind of your kind of freakish. I keep saying freakish athlete, like Jay. These are all NFL players, but great size. He can be used in the slot. I mean, essentially, he can kind of be used as that. Just get him the ball. I think his speed's pretty good, and I didn't think he was bad as a blocker last year either. To be honest, I thought he was okay. So I like the tight end group. I think it's solid. I'm not going to grade fullback. In fact, I mean, how many snaps did Nick Bellore even take at fullback last year? 2, 3. He's a special team. We're not even going to look at fullback. Offensive line. This is an interesting one. I'm going to give him a C+ at offensive line. I do think this could be a really good group. I think this is an underrated unit. I almost want to go B-, but I'm trying to be, not biased. I don't think I am, but there's still some question marks. So I'm going to go C+, but if this position group was like a B+ at the end of the year, I would not be shocked at all. Cross and Lucas, super impressive last year. Super impressive. Cross played in every game. He had a couple moments. I think was it him or Lucas that had a rough game against Bosa in that Thursday night game. But you know what? I really thought they stepped up in the playoff game and both played really well. And I also think, too, I mean, these are guys that were both rookies last year. In college, are playing 13 games. They played 18 games last year. Or Lucas 17, Cross 18. That's a big difference, from college. So I think now that they've got a year under their belt, hopefully can take the next step forward. I love Abraham Lucas. I honest to goodness, think Abe Lucas could be the best right tackle in football. I think this could be your Ryan Ramczyk, your Lane Johnson type player. I know it's getting ahead of myself there, but man, I love me some Abe Lucas. Obviously, he came out of Washington State, a really pass-heavy offense. But man, I thought he was impressive in the run blocking. He was impressive in run blocking preseason last year, and I thought it held up through the season. I didn't go back and watch every rep. I'm sure he got beat at times, but I didn't think there was any misstep for him. I actually thought he was better than Charles Cross last year to an extent. I think Cross is great. I almost think Lucas has more upside, though. And that's not a dig on Charles Cross. I think if Charles Cross is your left tackle for the next 10 years, that's fantastic. But man, so excited for those two. To nail 2 tackles in a draft is insane. And the fact that this team has those positions locked down for hopefully the next decade is just incredible. I mean, that alone made that a good draft. Not even factoring in Reek Woolen, Kenneth Walker, Boye Mafe, whoever else that I'm missing, Drake Young on special teams. That alone makes that draft just a huge, huge W for the Seattle Seahawks last year. Going to the interior, you've got Damian Lewis slated at guard, Evan Brown at center, Phil Haynes at right guard. So Phil Haynes is likely going to have the job for the first time in his career. He split with Gabe Jackson last year. Looks like it's Haynes' job to lose. Anthony Bradford would probably be the competition there. Bradford's just big. He's a big boy. Was he like 6? I'll click on him. I know he's 330. Is he 6'3", 330? 6'5", excuse me. 6'5", 330. Huge dude. Mauler in the run blocking game, Bradford. I think he can push people around all day. I do think he's a little raw. I don't love Phil Haynes, but I think he's solid. He's a C to me with some upside, with still some upside there. This will be, what is this, Haynes' 5th year, 4th year? Again, I don't think Phil Haynes is going to make a Pro Bowl, but if he's like your worst starter, I think you're okay. I think he kind of just does everything all right. I don't think he's like an elite run blocker and an elite pass blocker, but I don't think he's bad at either one either. Evan Brown, coming over from the Detroit Lions in free agency, likely going to beat out Ulo Uluwatimi for the center position. Pete even said yesterday that if the season started tomorrow that Brown would be the starter. It makes sense. I think it was last year that Brown played primarily right guard in Detroit. Did not look as fluid there. In fact, didn't look very good at all. But I think it was in 2021, played a lot of center, and I thought looked solid. Another guy that, to me, I think was a little bit more impressive in the run blocking. But that's okay. Like up the middle, I'm okay with that. The tackles can take care of the rush ends. So yeah, I'm fine with that. Again, like I'm not going to send Evan Brown to the Pro Bowl probably, but I think a solid addition there. I think he'll beat out Uluwatimi. Uluwatimi to me is like the opposite of Bradford. I think Uluwatimi is more sound. I think he could start day one, but Uluwatimi, watching his tape, he didn't move a lot of people. He didn't lose a lot, in my opinion, but he didn't like dominate a lot either. He was just kind of like, he was just a stonewall player, which is good. Like you're not going to get beat a lot, but I don't see him. He didn't like get anybody out of the way a ton from what I saw. That doesn't mean it's going to be bad. Like, in fact, again, from a center position, if you can make the right line calls and you've got the kind of the catcher of the offensive line, you can do that. I think it can absolutely work. So I wouldn't be shocked to see Uluwatimi get some snaps. I mean, the guy was a stud at Michigan. Didn't he win like the award for the best offensive lineman in college football or something like that? So I think an absolute steal in the 5th round with Uluwatimi. I just think that Evan Brown is a little more of a people mover, right now. Like, but Uluwatimi versus like Anthony Bradford to me are like, it's a great yin and yang again, because I think Bradford's really raw, but I think he could develop into something really good. Uluwatimi to me is not someone that like is necessarily going to trying to equate to like a baseball. Sometimes you get these prospects that they're just here across the board and they get kind of forgotten because they don't do anything amazing, but they don't do anything bad. And sometimes those guys turn out to be great. I always thought Kyle Seager was an example of that. And it's why he kind of got looked over sometimes. But then you bring those guys up and you find out, hey, maybe they're not elite at one thing, but man, they're solid across the board. I think Uluwatimi can be that. And then Damian Lewis at left guard, I thought played really, really well last season. Thought we might lose him for the year to start with that Bears preseason game. But he had a real good season. He played really well, especially I thought in the second half of the season. Another mauler, another run blocking mauler. To me, the inside of this line is more, you got the run blocking maulers, and the outside, you got more of the pass protectors. But I think Cross and Lucas really, and Cross too came over from Mississippi State, which was, that the concern was like the run blocking. I thought he looked fine there too. So I may be in the minority. I like this group. I don't think it is nearly as bad as some people think it is. I also think Geno has a little bit of that rust in him where he does take some sacks. He's got good speed mobility so he can keep plays alive. But there are times, I thought some of the strip sacks on Geno last year, he's got to get rid of the football. You know what I mean? Like that, the O-line can only block for so long. I think this is a pretty decent offensive line. No, I'm not saying it's the best in the league by far. I'm giving it a C+. But I think there's some really, really good upside there. And I like the depth. I like the depth on this offensive line. I think Anthony Bradford can step in and be solid, a little raw. Uluwatimi, if you lost Evan Brown, I wouldn't be too worried. I like Stone Forsythe as a backup tackle. When he played week 17 against the Jets, I thought he looked really solid at right tackle. I think Jake Curhan is a decent player. He played well, I thought, 2 years ago. Again, more of a run blocker than a pass protector, but again, someone that they have to step in, and he actually might be the next guy up. I mentioned Bradford, a guard, probably be Curhan that would step in. But I think there's some decent depth there too. I think, now you won't want to lose all those guys, but if you lost Phil Haynes for a couple weeks, if you lost Lucas for a couple weeks, I think there's enough depth there that could step up and keep that group afloat. So overall, listen, this offense has upside. A lot's going to depend on Geno, as it always does. Quarterback's most important position in the league. If Geno can be first half Geno, then my gosh, the sky is the limit for this offense. There are so many weapons here. And I'm not trying to be biased. This offense is loaded. Walker, Charbonnet, Metcalf, Lockett, Smith, and Jigba, the tight ends, and a young offensive line that could take a big step forward this year. If you get second half Geno, where some of these turnovers are happening, I still think this is a good offense. I actually do. I think there's enough here that makes this a good offense. But you're maybe talking, first half Geno, I think you can be talking some really high expectations. Second half Geno, you're talking fringe playoff team. And we'll talk about why in a minute with the defense a little bit. Hopefully he can get something in between. Hopefully, I don't think you need first half Geno, but man, if he can just kind of be second half Geno without the turnover worthy plays, I mean, I guess that would be first half Geno essentially, but I think you guys know what I mean. So love this offense, man. I mean, it has got some great upside. Let's move on to the defense. Let's start with the interior defensive line here. So it's a 3-4 base defense. I don't know all the technicalities. There's guys like Matty Brown and Griff that really, if you guys watch them, I forgot the name of their podcast. Seattle Overlords, is that it? Man, they can break down things that I have no idea about. So go watch them if you want more technical on it. But it is essentially a base 3-4. So we're talking about, so essentially like for the like outside linebackers are, do they even have them listed here? Where is like Daryl Taylor and Wosu are listed as like linebackers. They're essentially kind of DN. So when I'm talking about D linemen, I'm talking Draymond Jones, Mike Morris, Jaron Reed, just so you know. The D line group, I give a D plus. There is some upside. There is. But it's not a great group. You're probably going to have Draymond Jones lined up as an end. It sounded like Jaron Reed was playing more nose tackle. Is I think what Pete talked about was Jaron playing nose tackle. Correct me if I'm wrong on that, guys. Especially with Brian Monet, no real update there on his injury. You do have Cameron Young as well, the rookie. I think it was a 4th round out of Mississippi State. Yeah, 4th round, 123 overall. I like Cameron Young, big guy. Definitely a good run stuffer at Mississippi State. That's a lot. I mean, and it's a position where I think you can come in and succeed, but it would be a lot to hand that role over to him as a rookie. So I think putting Jaron Reed there makes sense. But again, Jaron Reed he's okay. Like, he's not the worst guy to have on your team. I talked about that in the signing. I was like, he's fine. He's got a little pass rush. He's okay against the run, but he's okay. Like, if Jaron Reed was playing 15 snaps a game, I'd be totally fine with it. But you're probably going to need Jaron Reed to play 40 snaps a game. Don't love it. Really like the Draymond Jones signing. Love that. Good pass rusher. Not great against the run, but I think the skill set is there to stop the run. I think he's probably their best two-dimensional player on the D-line. Again, we're, Taylor and Wosu and those guys count as outside backers. So I think he's the guy with the most potential to possibly be kind of a dual threat for them. Mike Morris sounds like he's going to move more inside. He was more of an outside player at Michigan State. I know they've had him add some pounds and whatnot. I like Mike Morris, the rookie out of Michigan. I said Michigan State, didn't I? Michigan, the 5th rounder. Again, though, 5th round pick, asking a lot. But I think he can be a guy that kind of step outside and play DN, play a little nose, maybe in pass rushing situations. They signed Mario Edwards, who I believe had like 6 or 7 sacks last year for the Titans. Let me check. I'm going to look up stats and I'm going to not be able to find it. 3 sacks last year. I think he was on Tennessee last year. I think he was on the Titans last year. 3 sacks last year. I think a good depth player. I actually like the signing. I know it didn't get much praise, but again, I like Edwards because he can play kind of out and in on pass rushing. He can on base downs, he can play outside on pass rushing situations. He can move to the inside. If they go 4-3 on some pass rushing downs, I actually kind of like, if this team can get defenses in 3rd and long, I kind of like the D-line a little bit because I think you've got some decent pass rushers with Edwards, Draymond Jones, Jaron Reed, and then we'll talk about the backers as well. So I think you do have some potential there. But it's how much 3rd and longs is this team going to get offenses in? We'll talk about why they could a little later. That the defense is going to get better here. But yeah, outside of Draymond Jones, I'd love to see if Brian Monet can get back. I think he's a perfect nose tackle for this defense. I know a lot of people wanted them to kind of bring back, they let go of Shelby Harris, Al Woods, Quentin Jefferson. Was there someone else they let go of that I'm forgetting off the top of my head? Poona Ford left. I wouldn't mind Poona coming back. I think he would have been solid depth. But again, I don't think Poona moves the needle that much. Quentin Jefferson, I'm going to be honest, I don't like Quentin Jefferson. He is a one-trick pony pass rusher, and he's not even that great at it. At least with Jaron Reed, there's some semblance of run defense to be played. And I think Draymond Jones is a much better pass rusher than Quentin Jefferson. He may not be, a ton better stuffing the run, but I think he has potential to do that, and I think he's a better pass rusher. I wouldn't mind them bringing back Shelby Harris. You still could. And then Al Woods, again, I mean, if all these guys were so good, the defense would have been awful last year. So there's something there that wasn't working. Maybe it's the scheme. I don't know. I love me some Al Woods. I like Shelby Harris. I think Shelby Harris is okay. I think Poona Ford's okay. I don't think they move the needle much. And who knows with Al Woods? He's 36, 37. He missed some time last year. He's on I think he signed with the Jets, who have a loaded D-line. So, who knows how active he's even going to be necessarily there. So I'm not overly concerned about any of the losses. This is a group that I think is going to struggle. I think there is some pass rush possibilities here. I think the run defense is going to struggle again. But not the old saying, but if you're going to be bad at anything in football, be bad at run defense. I mean, it's kind of the least important of all the aspects. It's a passing game. It's a passing league. And people might be saying, well, Jay, man, look what happened last year, the New Orleans game, the Raiders game, the Panthers game. Yes, they got ran over in those games. But look at the Raiders game. Josh Jacobs ran for almost 300 yards, and had Seattle gotten 10 more yards in overtime, they probably still win that football game. Now, that would have cost Jacobs 86 yards because he wouldn't have had the big run at the end. But it was still a great game from Jacobs regardless of that last run. So, the Saints game, despite being blown away by Taysom frickin' Hill running the football, I think Kamara went over 100 yards too. They had the lead with 6 minutes to go in that football game. Now, better run defense, they probably win those games. And the Panthers game, they just got bombarded. Geno had some early turnovers, and they were down 17-0 before he could blink. I want the run defense to be better, guys. I'm not saying, whatever, forget the run defense. But it probably can't get much worse. There's famous last words. Clip that, me saying that, because we'll revisit that in the season when it's worse. But, like I said, I don't think it's going to be a good run defense, but I think there is some upside to be better. I think you're more athletic at the D-line this year with Reed, with Jones, Edwards, Morris, Cameron Young. You're a little younger, a little more athletic. But again, it's a D+ to me. It's just not a great unit. Let's move on to the outside linebackers, the DNs, the rush ends. That'll be Darrell Taylor, Uchenna Nwosu, Derek Taylor, Boye Mafe, Tyreek Smith. Now, fun fact, I pointed this fact out in many of my videos. The Seahawks actually had more sacks last year than the San Francisco 49ers. Now, and I didn't realize this, I forgot, I think, Wild Boar, if you're watching this, I think you pointed out to me in my last stream, their pass rush win rate was really poor. It was 25th in the league or something, which makes sense. And my comment about the sacks is very tongue-in-cheek. If any Niner fans are watching this, I don't think the Seahawks defense is better than yours. It was just kind of a fun fact. I think you're still missing that kind of alpha pass rusher. The Niners have their Nick Bosa, guys like that. The Seahawks don't have that. I think they've got a lot of solid pass rushers. It kind of reminds me maybe of the 2005 defense, where you didn't have a lot of elite pass rushers, but you had a lot of guys that could get 7, 8, 9 sacks and help make the pass rush as a whole good. Now, that could hurt you. It's always nice to have that one dominant player that can just beat anybody. But I do think there's some chance to get some sacks here. Darrell Taylor had 10 last year, and Nwosu had 10 last year. Maffe's looked really good in camp, was a good run stuff for last year. Super athletic. Hopefully in year 2, he can take a step forward the pass rush. I like Derek Hall a lot. Watching his tape, I think he can be a legitimate day one force for this team getting to the quarterback. He's strong, maybe athletically not the best. Again, as I've said this 8 times, these guys are all amazing athletes. But I think he can push you back. I think he can push a pile, which is fine because on the other side, I think you have more athletic guys like Taylor and Nwosu. They can get going. Darrell Taylor is a little streaky. I mean, remember, he was kind of benched last year at a point for Bruce Irvin. I mean, pass rushers, D linemen rotate so much, so no one's really benched. But Bruce Irvin took a lot of his snaps. And then at the end of the year, Taylor sort of went off and had a bunch of sacks. So I'd like to see a little more consistency from the pass rush and not having it kind of just in chunks throughout the year. And then there was that run in the middle of the year where they won 4 in a row, where the defense actually looked legit. And then they kind of fell off after that. They obviously extended Nwosu. Love it. Nwosu is one of my favorite players. Great pass rusher. Really good athlete, in my opinion. Someone that can, I keep saying that, like, Jay, they're all great athletes for the last time. I think Nwosu is a guy that can drop back into coverage a little bit. I think he's versatile. I think he can stay on a tight end if you need him to. I don't know if they need him to in this defense. We'll get into that. But he can get out to the pass rusher. I think he's a pretty decent run stuffer. I think Derek Hall is going to be a decent run stuffing DN. Darrell Taylor obviously is not, but if the other guys can be good, you can just utilize him as a pass rusher. This unit gets a C plus for me. It's that's maybe a little optimistic. It's tough because like that pass rush win rate last year was not great. But I do think they can get some sacks and get to the quarterback. They don't really have an elite guy. Who knows? Maybe Derek Hall ends up being that. Will Anderson had been great, but he wasn't there. He can't do anything. I know John Schneider talked about, he said there were 3 blue chip players they were looking at when they drafted, when they were going to be sitting at 5. They wanted one of them to be there. I maintain it was Anderson, Richardson, and Devin Witherspoon were the 3 that they had as their blue chippers. So, yeah, Will Anderson would have been amazing to add to this defense. And I'll also talk about why maybe their pass rush win rate won't be amazing, but they're also going to get a lot of sacks because, man, is this secondary loaded. And that should help. So, like, what's more important to a pass rush? Is it the secondary or is it the lineman getting the pressure? I think you'd love to have both. But if your secondary can hold up, I think this team is going to get some coverage sacks for sure as well. So I give it a C plus. I don't think it's an amazing unit. I think it's going to be okay against the run. I think it's got some guys that are streaky pass rushers that are going to get you some sacks and bunches. But it's not going to be like a dominant pass rushing force, if that makes sense. Let's move on to the inside linebackers, which is hopefully going, well, we know it's going to be the man, the myth, the legend. He's back, Mr. Bobby Wagner. That's going to be my jersey I get for the throwbacks because you can't go wrong with 54. Bobby is back. Sounds like Jordan Brooks might be close to being activated off the PUP list. That would be huge because I think Wagner and Brooks is a pretty good combo. I know people are screaming at the linebacker depth, and then they added Devin Bush as well. Devin Bush, from a first-round pick from the Steelers. It's worth a shot because he's a former first-round pick, really good athlete. Hasn't recovered, I think, from the injury. Doesn't look nearly as fast. Didn't look nearly as fast last year. But Pete Carroll creates a great culture. Maybe you can get something out of Devin Bush returning. That would be great. And if he's kind of used sparingly, maybe that'll help as well. So hopefully you can get Jordan Brooks back out there. Listen, I don't think Brooks or Wagner, Bobby Wagner's not the coverage linebacker he used to be. He's in his, 11th year. I mean, Bobby used to be able to run 50 yards down the field with guys. We know Jordan Brooks is not a great coverage linebacker either. But I think both, we talk about the run defense, I think both guys are going to help the run stuffing defense big time. Bobby Wagner is still very good against the run. He can still stick his nose in there. Is there a smarter player in the league than Bobby Wagner? In my opinion, I'll put his football IQ up with anybody in the league. And that should help the defense too, having a leader like Bobby there. But he still was strong against the run, in my opinion, the Rams. He didn't get flushed out a lot, didn't get lost in the shuffle. Yeah, I thought, Tyler Lockett burned him a couple times going over the middle. Yeah, he's not great in pat. Neither is Jordan Brooks. But again, we're going to get to the secondary. The secondary should be amazing. You shouldn't have to worry about it too much. So if Brooks and Wagner can just kind of focus on stuff in the run. And here's the thing, like Jordan Brooks is athletic enough to be better in pass coverage. He hasn't shown it yet. But if he can just be a little bit better, like that'll help. And then, I give the inside linebackers a B minus, I would say. Listen, Bobby's, in his 12th year. He's not what he used to be. And Jordan Brooks is not, an elite talent, in my opinion. He's more of just a solid starter in the league. But I think together that's pretty good. I like some of the depth. I think Devin Bush is intriguing to see what you get. John Radigan, good special teams player, could probably slide in a little bit. And he brought back Ben Burke-Kirven. That's pretty much just for special teams. They did lose Cody Barton there and Tanner Muse. I didn't think Barton deserved half the trash he got last year. Again, I don't think it's a huge loss, but I thought Cody Barton actually played pretty decently last year. A really good depth piece too. I actually think he would have fit well with this defense, and for a one-year deal, I might have brought him back, especially with the Jordan Brooks injury, but they didn't, so we'll move on. Let's move on to the secondary. I'm just going to grade the secondary as a whole. I'm not going to do corners and safety separately. I give the secondary an A, maybe A minus. Let's go A minus because there is a couple question marks on it. But the first thing, it looks, Reek Woolen, Witherspoon at corners, Sounds like Jamal Adams might be close to coming off the pup list as well. Quandre Diggs. I love the depth in the secondary. Not only is the depth amazing, you've also got guys that can play anywhere. This defense can do so much mixing and matching because of the secondary, in my opinion, that it is going to be fun. Let's first talk about the corners. I mean, Devin Witherspoon, obviously probably my favorite pick in the draft. Man, him and Reek Woolen. And another great yin and yang, in my opinion. Like, I think Witherspoon's a little more lockdown. I think Woolen's more of like, going to get the pick, maybe give up a play occasionally. Listen, Tariq Woolen got picked on in the wild card game. Some of those crossers and stuff that Ayuk and Debo ran, they gave the Seahawks fits. And I know like there's nothing Devin Witherspoon can really do across the field in that, but I think having a player like Devin Witherspoon that I think is going to be better suited to stop those plays is going to help Tariq Woolen. I think Woolen's going to be able to be a little bit more of a like what makes Woolen so great is the ball hawking. He's fast, so he can run. You're not going to run streaks on Tariq Woolen, but man, he can go after the football. So having Diggs and Adams behind him, Julian Love, one of my favorite additions in this offseason, and Devin Witherspoon on the other side, I think is going to make Woolen even more able to sort of like, man, I can go for the pick here. I can get it because I know I've got the help behind me. Not saying you want to get beat. You want to still be able to stop those routes, but I'm thinking maybe that can happen there. Now, Witherspoon's a rookie. There's no guarantee he's coming in day one and dominating. That's why, I kind of bump it from A to A minus. Like, Devin Witherspoon has played 0 downs in the NFL. And, I'd be shocked if he's not a good player, but it does happen. It is possible that he doesn't turn out to be good. So I can't, like, really just go, oh, yeah, Devin Witherspoon, lockdown. Let's wait and see before I go too far into that. We know Quandre Diggs, one of the best center fielders in football. Great to see him come back from that injury last year. Great to see at the end of the year some of the interceptions start coming in for Diggs again. And a great leader as well. Jamal Adams. So Jamal Adams is so polarizing, in my opinion. So Jamal Adams, in my opinion, has become so overrated by people that I actually think he's a really underrated player, if healthy. Again, that's also another reason why I want to maybe bump it down to A minus, or maybe I should go B plus. I'm just going to keep it A minus because I love the depth. There's a chance Jamal Adams just doesn't come back from the injury. This is now 2 years in a row. Actually, all 3 years he's missed time in Seattle. But man, if you can get a healthy Jamal Adams on the field, I think he's still a really good player. The trade was bad. There's no taking that back. But you can still get something out of Jamal Adams. I don't think he's as bad in coverage as people say. Is he a good coverage safety? No. But I don't think he's a train wreck out there. He's a great run stuffer. He's a good pass rusher. What's great about Jamal Adams, you could use him in the slot if teams like to put tight ends over there to cover tight ends, or even maybe bigger body slot receivers. You could try that. You could blitz him, kind of use him as a linebacker. He can come up and stuff the run. He's a great run stuffer. Or he can just play back and play a strong safety position. One of the things I said last year is I really think in Clint Hurtt's first year, he had a lot of plans for Jamal Adams, and then he went out week 1. I think that really kind of messed up what they wanted to do, because I think they were really going to utilize Adams interesting, and they're going to have a chance to do that. And one of the reasons you could move Adams, have him play down at nickel or something like that, or play more in the box as a linebacker, is because you signed, in my opinion, one of the most underrated free agent signings this year, Julian Love. Julian Love can play nickel. He can play safety for you. Just a really good overall polished player, in my opinion. And I think he could just be your nickel. You can just have Julian Love go to nickel and Witherspoon and Woolen on the outsides, Adams and Diggs, back at safety, you'd be fine. You could move Adams all around. Julian Love can play safety. I think, or you could have them all on the field at once. Kind of a 3 safety look, which I think they're going to do a little bit of. I think they tried to do a little bit of it last year with, who was the guy that got into it with Debo that they had from the Raiders? It's going to drive me nuts now. I got to look it up. Who was that? Jonathan Abram. You kind of had him out in the field a little bit with Ryan Neal. And then when Ryan Neal got healthy, he was out there with Josh Jones a little bit. I think you're going to see a lot of that, but just at a higher level. Now, Jamal Adams needs to be healthy. That's like the key here is Jamal Adams' health. But I think you could have Adams, Love, and Diggs on the field all at the same time and go with the 3 safety look. You could go with like a 3-3-5 or yeah, like or no, that one. You know what I mean? You could have three safeties on the field. I'm trying to break down the defense here. You could have five safeties, five in the secondary, three at linebacker, three on the D line. That's what I was trying to say. 3-3-5. That's what I'm saying. You could do something like that. Yeah, the possibilities are endless. We've seen Devin Witherspoon's played some nickel. Now, Woolen just came back from the PUP list, so that could have been one of the reasons. But you could have Devin Witherspoon play nickel a little bit. And you could have Woolen and Michael Jackson. Michael Jackson was good last year. He was a good player. Now, do I think Devin Witherspoon's going to be better? Heck yes. But there's nothing wrong with Michael Jackson at corner. You've got Kobe Bryant. Kobe Bryant could just play nickel for you. I didn't think Kobe Bryant played that well last year, to be perfectly honest with you guys. I was not super impressed, but there was some upside there. Like it wasn't like a waste. Like you did see a talented player in there. And there's no reason he should just not see the field. Trey Brown has looked good in camp so far. I always temper camp stories because a lot of guys can look good in camp and things just change when you get to the games. But Trey Brown kind of lost last year because of his injury. He didn't come back till midway through the season and just never really had a chance to I think Jackson was playing well and Woolen really took off that you didn't really have a chance for Trey Brown to get on the field much. But he was looking really good 2 years ago when he took over that job. From who did he take it over from? Who did he come in and start for? I don't remember. He had Sidney Jones playing. Who are the corners? Trey Flowers, because they cut Trey Flowers finally at that point, or traded him. So yeah, like Trey Brown looked really good a couple of years ago. There's just so much depth in this secondary. I'm curious how they get all these guys on the field because I do think you want to get Michael Jackson on the field. I do think you want to try and get Trey Brown on the field. I do think you want to try and get Kobe Bryant on the field. You got to get Julian Love on the field. Jamal Adams is, again, if healthy, is one of the most versatile players you can have on defense. And you know, obviously we know Quandre Diggs is going to be on the field. You know, Woolen and Witherspoon are going to be on the field as well. So now I don't think you could put Woolen in the slot. I just don't think his game matches up well against slot receivers. He's an outside corner to me. I'd rather have Witherspoon on the outside personally, but you could slide him down into nickel situations and put Jackson on the outside. And in fact, that's what they were doing. Now, again, Woolen was out, so curious to see how they're doing it now. Special teams, Chris Stoll is a long snapper. I have no idea who that is. Myers is, kickers are volatile year to year, and Michael Dixon, one of the best punters in the game. So that's going to be my Seahawks group by group grade breakdown. Let me know what you guys think. Listen, I think the offense has potential to be special. I think the defense, it's going to have its hiccups. I think they're going to struggle against the run. I think they're going to be streaky rushing the passer. I think there are some good pass rushers here. I think they will get some sacks. I think they'll beat up on some weak offensive lines. I think there's enough talent that they're going to have games where they make some weak offensive lines look really weak. And you're going to be like, man, where'd those 7 sacks come from? But I think they're going to struggle against elite offensive lines. Now, most pass rushers do, but I mean to the point where we're like, there's no pressure. No pressure. Hopefully the secondary helps with that. I think the secondary has a chance to be elite. Now, Devin Witherspoon's a rookie. Jamal Adams is coming off season-ending surgery. Let's hold off a little bit before anointing, as I just did, anointing these guys. But I do think the potential is there for one of the best secondaries in football. I really, really do. I think the offensive line has some questions, but man, I love the upside. I really do. I think Abe Lucas has Pro Bowl written all over him. The wide receivers are great. I think the tight ends are underrated. Love the running back group. I'm a Geno believer. Even if he's not first half Geno, I still think, listen, no matter what, I think Geno showed he is a starting quarterback in this league last year. There's no doubt in my mind he is a starting caliber quarterback. It's just, is he top 10 or top 18? You know what I mean? Like, that's the question for me. So we'll find out soon enough. First preseason game's Thursday. Probably won't see a lot of these guys out there, but it'll be fun to have Seahawks football back. So stick with me. The Mariners content staying, but Seahawks content is going to start ramping up as well. So hit that like button, hit the subscribe button for me, and let's get into it. Go Hawks. Have a great day, everybody. Peace.